Earth never asked for the war, but the sky tore open without warning. One night, the stars blinked out and something huge moved above the clouds. It wasn't just a spaceship. It was a shadow that swallowed whole cities. Governments panicked. Satellites failed. And in a small desert base, one soldier stared at the sky, unaware that his life was about to change forever. Darren Cole had seen combat before, but nothing prepared him for this. He was supposed to be on night watch, guarding the facility's outer fence. It was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that didn't feel like peace. His boots crunched on gravel as he walked toward the perimeter. That's when the flash came. Green fire lit up the sky. A sleek object, not like any Earthcraft, crashed into the canyon nearby. Dust exploded outward, and a sharp ringing filled his ears. He rushed toward it without thinking. Training told him to call for backup. His heart told him something else. Smoke and fire surrounded the broken wreck. It wasn't burning like metal. It looked like it was bleeding. The craft pulsed with a strange blue glow, and part of it opened like a flower. Inside, something moved. Not a weapon. Not a machine. It was a girl. Her skin was ice blue. Her hair floated as if underwater. She was clearly alien, but her expression wasn't hostile. She was hurt. One arm hung useless at her side, her lips trembling. Their eyes met. She tried to speak but collapsed into his arms. Darren didn't care if this was against orders. He carried her back to the base, hiding her in an old cargo bay beneath a tarp. Nobody could know. They would take her, study her, maybe kill her, but he just couldn't let that happen. She wasn't a threat. She was scared. Over the next 2 days, he brought her food and water. She healed quickly, but never spoke. Instead, she would just watch him, wide-eyed. When he asked her name, she placed her hand on her chest and then pointed at him. He didn't understand it, but he started calling her Nova. Nova never left the bay. She didn't seem to trust the rest of the world, only him. She followed him with her eyes, mimicked his movements, even laughed once when he sneezed. Darren knew this wasn't just a mission anymore. It felt like something else. Like destiny knocking quietly on a soldier's door. Then came the alarm. Earth's defense forces had spotted movement in orbit. More ships were coming. Darren knew Nova wasn't safe. He begged her to escape while she still could. But she just stood there, looking into his eyes, shaking her head slowly. She touched his cheek gently. It was the first time she touched him. Without trembling, later that night, everything exploded. The sky turned red. Fighters screamed past. Missiles roared overhead. The facility was under attack. He grabbed his rifle and turned to warn Nova, but she was gone. Her hiding spot was empty. He thought she had left, saved herself. He was wrong. Darren joined the frontline defense, fighting wave after wave of strange machines. He fought until his arm bled and his lungs burned. Just as a mech aimed its weapon at his head, something green flashed in front of him. The blade cut the machine clean in half. And standing there, glowing like a star, was Nova. She had armor now, sleek and shining with the same blue glow as her ship. In her hand was a sword of energy. Her eyes no longer looked scared. They looked angry. And they never left his face, even as she cut down enemy after enemy with perfect grace. She fought like a storm. Darren didn't know where she learned it. He just knew she was protecting him. And for some reason, no other soldier around him seemed to see her. They shouted, fired, fell, but none reacted to Nova. Only he did. Only he saw her fight. Only he knew what she was. When the final ship crashed and silence returned, she was gone again. No trace, no sign, no heat signatures. Just smoke and ash and his heartbeat pounding in his chest. They declared the battle won. Darren didn't speak about Nova. He knew nobody would believe him. He barely believed it himself. But that night, and every night after, she returned. She stood by his bed, silent, glowing, watching. She never spoke, never touched him. Just stood there, as if guarding him from the shadows. No cameras caught her, no sensors triggered. To the world, she didn't exist. But Darren knew better. She was real. She had chosen him. And now she never left him alone. Darren woke up covered in sweat, breathing hard, and gripping the side of his bed. The lights in his room were dim. Everything looked normal, except for her. Nova stood at the edge of the bed, quiet and still, her glowing green eyes locked on him. He sat up slowly, confused. "You're back," he whispered. Nova didn't answer. She tilted her head like she was trying to understand something. Then, just like before, she turned and walked toward the wall and disappeared into it like smoke. He jumped out of bed and touched the wall. It was solid, cold, just steel, no tricks, no tech. His security cam blinked in the corner. He played the footage, nothing, no figure, no movement. He rewound it 3 times. The footage showed only him sleeping alone. Darren didn't know what was happening. He remembered the battle, the fire, the sword she held. He remembered the way she moved too fast for a human. He remembered her saving his life. But now she appeared and vanished like a dream. He couldn't tell anyone. They'd say he was losing it. Maybe he was. But the next night, she came again. And the next. Sometimes she stood. Sometimes she sat near him. Sometimes she just stared at the stars through the window. But she never spoke. During the day, Darren tried to research alien tech. He read every classified report he could find. He even hacked into old files about stealth cloaking and psychic resonance fields. Nothing matched what she was doing. There was no record of any alien that could act like her. One day, while walking through the remains of the battlefield, he found something strange. A piece of black metal shaped like a pendant. It pulsed faintly in his palm. When he picked it up, a chill ran through his spine. It wasn't from Earth. He knew that instantly. He brought it back to his room and placed it on the desk. That night Nova appeared again. But this time, her eyes glowed brighter when she saw the pendant. She reached for it slowly, almost in fear. But before she could touch it, it vanished in a flash of green light. Darren blinked. The pendant was back on the table, untouched. Nova stepped back. She looked shaken for the first time. He stood up and walked toward her. "What is it? Is that yours?" he asked gently. She didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hand and placed it over his heart. A wave of warmth filled his chest. Not heat, something deeper. Like a memory. Or a feeling. He saw flashes in his mind. A planet burning. A voice screaming. A hand reaching for his. And then darkness. When he opened his eyes, she was gone again. The next morning, he reported for a psychological exam. The military insisted all soldiers undergo one after major combat. The doctors asked routine questions. But when Darren mentioned dreams of the alien girl, their expressions changed. They ran brain scans, memory checks, asked him to draw her. When he did, one of the doctors turned pale. He didn't explain why. He just left the room in silence. Later that day, Darren was ordered to stay inside the base under observation. That night, Nova didn't appear. He waited in the dark, heart racing. Hours passed. Nothing. Then just before dawn, a soft humming began near the wall. Nova stepped out of the shadows slowly, but something was different. She looked weaker. Her shoulders drooped. Her glow dimmed. Her eyes flickered like fading lights. Darren rushed to her side, but she fell to her knees. "Nova?" he said, holding her upright. She looked at him, opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Then he saw it. The pendant on the table was glowing red. It wasn't like before. The light was violent, pulsing fast like a warning. Nova looked at it, then at Darren. She grabbed his hand and placed it on the pendant. The room shook with energy. Suddenly, they were not in the room anymore. They stood in a wide field of stars. Floating, weightless, around them, memories danced like light. Images of Nova's world, her people, her war, her death. Yes, her death. Darren saw it clearly. She had died in that crash. Her body had broken, but something inside her held on. Something bound to him. When he carried her from the wreckage, she had latched onto him, mind, spirit, or soul. Whatever she was now, she was tied to him. The vision faded. They were back in his room. Nova looked more solid again. But she didn't stay. She backed away into the shadows, her eyes locked on his. For the first time, a single tear rolled down her cheek. Then she vanished into the wall. Darren stood alone. But not truly alone. He now understood. She wasn't just visiting. She was caught between life and something else. And for reasons neither of them could explain, he was the only one who could see her. Darren didn't sleep the next night. He waited with his boots still on, fully dressed, watching the wall where Nova always appeared. Hours passed and nothing happened. His heart sank deeper each hour. The silence in the room felt heavier than ever before. He replayed the memory of the vision, her death, the connection between them. He remembered her hand guiding his to the pendant, the warmth and the star-filled sky. It wasn't a dream. He could still feel the echo of that place behind his eyes. The pendant now sat inside a locked container. It had stopped glowing. He didn't dare touch it again. Whatever happened last time had drained Nova. He didn't want to hurt her more. But he had questions, and she was the only one with answers. The military kept pressing. They called an off-world tech specialist to examine his brain scans. The readings were strange, full of patterns they couldn't explain. When he asked what they meant, no one gave a straight answer. He could tell they were scared. On the third night she returned. This time she didn't stand by the bed. She was crouched near the far corner, arms wrapped around her knees. Her glow was faint, her hair hanging like silk threads across her face. Darren knelt beside her gently. "You're in pain," he whispered. She didn't respond, but she didn't disappear either. He noticed small cracks glowing faintly along her skin, like something was breaking inside her. He reached toward her, and she didn't pull away. Their fingers touched. He closed his eyes, trying to feel what she felt. The warmth came again, softer this time. A quiet memory entered his mind. Not a battle, a small room, a family, a promise, and then the crash. She had been fleeing something. Not a war, but a choice. He pulled back. "You didn't want to fight," he said. She looked at him and slowly nodded. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She placed her hand on her own chest again, then pointed to him. Just like the first time. He finally understood. She wasn't just bonded to him. She was surviving because of him. His presence was keeping her from fading completely. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was something neither human nor alien could explain. But the link was real. Outside, the base had grown tense. Strange signals had been detected again in orbit. Officials warned of a second wave. Darren was grounded due to psychological instability. But he knew the truth. They were scared of what he might reveal. One night, someone entered his room while he was asleep. Two men in dark suits, no name tags, no insignia. They searched everything. They didn't find the pendant. It was hidden beneath the floor vent. But they did find his sketches of Nova. When he woke, the men were gone. So was his notebook. His laptop had been wiped clean. The message was clear. Stop digging. Stay quiet. Pretend none of this happened. But he couldn't. Not when Nova kept returning each night. She began to show him more. Little by little. Short flashes of her world. Towering spires made of crystal. A sky with two suns. Children with glowing skin running through fields of soft blue grass. And then, always the same memory, the crash. Each time the vision ended, She looked more tired. Darren begged her to stop. "You don't need to show me anymore," he said. "You need to rest." But she shook her head every time, like she was trying to finish something before her time ran out. Then came the day when the base fell silent. No drills, no flights, no orders. All communication went dark. Rumors spread quickly. A ship had appeared near the moon. No response. No signals. Just sitting there, watching. And it looked like her ship. Darren broke protocol. He snuck into the command center and pulled satellite feeds. The craft was identical to Nova's downed vessel. Same shape, same glow, but 10 times the size. The brass wanted to fire first. He begged them to wait. "They're not here for war," he said. "I know it. Please let me talk to them." They laughed at him, called him delusional. A side effect of trauma. He was dragged out in cuffs, locked in a medical bay for his own safety. But Nova came anyway. That night, she appeared at the foot of the hospital bed. She looked stronger now. The cracks on her skin had faded. Her glow was steady. She touched his forehead and shared one final vision. This one felt clearer than ever. Before, he saw her people, not soldiers but seekers. Explorers of minds and energy. Their kind didn't die in the normal sense. They passed into memory, into thought. She had been dying, yes, but the link to him had kept her soul awake. Her people were coming for her. But they couldn't find her body. Only her echo remained. Tied to the one who saved her. Tied to Darren. And unless he let her go, she would stay in limbo forever. He opened his eyes. She was still there. Her eyes were softer. She knelt beside him and placed her hands on his shoulders. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't need to. He felt it in her touch. And then, just like that, she vanished once more. Darren didn't report to his superiors the next day. He stayed in his room, hands clenched, thoughts spinning. Nova was fading. Her people had come. She had shown him everything. And now she wanted to leave. He sat on the floor with the pendant in his hand. It was glowing again. But it wasn't green anymore. It pulsed with a soft gold light. He didn't know what it meant, but he could feel her inside it. Not her body, not her voice, just her presence. He spoke aloud. "If you're still there, if you can hear me, tell me what I should do." There was no answer, no vision, no warmth. Just silence. He placed the pendant back into its case and locked it tight. He walked to the mess hall. Soldiers sat around quietly, no laughter, no loud talk. The ship above the moon had changed everything. Some believed it was the beginning of war. Others thought it was the end of everything. No one really knew what to believe. The officers were tense. Patrols were doubled. Drones were launched. They were preparing for conflict. But Darren knew something no one else did. That ship wasn't here to attack. It was here to reclaim what was lost. He waited for her every night now, but Nova didn't appear. Not once, not even as a shadow. A part of him feared she had already left. Another part hoped she hadn't because of the bond they had formed. Either way, the emptiness in the room was sharp. On the 5th night, the sky changed. A blue beam shot down from the ship above the moon, touching a mountain range far beyond the base. It didn't destroy anything. It simply scanned the surface and stopped. The signal was controlled, measured, purposeful. Command called it a threat. They ordered long-range weapons to target the ship. Darren begged them to wait. He demanded to speak with the top general. When denied, he broke into the command center to send a message himself. He used old codes from when he was a field tech. He hacked the satellite feed and sent a pulse straight toward the ship. A sequence Nova once showed him in a vision. A call. Not of war, but of peace. Everyone in the room shouted, tried to stop him, but it was too late. The signal had been sent. They arrested him again, but something unexpected happened. The ship responded. A message arrived, not words, but a stream of symbols and light. Scientists studied the transmission. They couldn't understand it, but Darren did. He recognized the shapes, the motion. They were the same patterns Nova had shown him. This was communication, not a threat, not an attack. A request. The base went quiet. A new order arrived from the top. Do not engage. Hold fire. A meeting was arranged. And Darren, now seen as the only one who had made contact, was asked to attend. He stood in a wide field surrounded by high towers and blinking drones. The ship hovered above, massive and silent. Then, a light beam touched the ground. A figure stepped out slowly, cloaked in white and glowing with soft gold markings. It wasn't Nova, but it looked like her. Taller, older, regal. She looked at Darren and spoke in a language no one else understood. But Darren did. He didn't know how. The bond was still active. You hold her echo, the figure said. She passed between worlds. Her spirit rests with you. Darren lowered his head. She saved me, he replied. I don't want to let her go. The figure stepped closer and placed a hand on his chest. You gave her peace, but now you must let her return. The figure opened her palm. The same pendant floated into the air, glowing gold. It hovered between them. Then, slowly, it dissolved into a cloud of light. From that cloud, Nova's shape appeared. Soft, translucent, glowing. Her eyes met his. She smiled, calm and quiet. No words were spoken, but he understood. She was thankful. She was ready. The others watched in silence. They saw nothing. Only Darren did. Only he could witness her final moment. Her spirit drifted forward, placing her hand on his. And then, like dust in sunlight, she faded. The alien figure turned and walked back toward the ship. The light beam pulled her upward. No weapon was fired. No threat remained. The ship rose higher into the sky and vanished without sound. Darren stood in the empty field alone, but this time, truly alone. The presence he had felt for nights was gone. The room would be quiet now. The wall would remain just a wall. And the pendant was no longer glowing. He returned to his room and sat by the window. The stars looked brighter that night. He didn't feel broken. He felt whole. Like something important had ended the right way. Nova was gone. But she wasn't lost. The world moved on, but Darren didn't return to normal life. Something inside him had changed. Not just because of what he had seen, but because of what he had felt. It wasn't easy to forget a being like Nova. He spent his days helping clean the wreckage from the battle site. He didn't talk much. The other soldiers respected him now, but also avoided him. They whispered when he passed. Some said he had seen an alien ghost. Others believed he had lost his mind. Darren didn't care what they thought. He knew the truth. Nova had been real. Her people were real. And they had come not to destroy, but to reclaim something sacred. Her spirit had survived in him, and together, they had helped her find peace. One evening, while walking through the wreckage field, Darren found a small crystal shard buried in the dirt. It pulsed faintly with the same blue light he remembered. He picked it up carefully. As soon as he touched it, the light grew stronger. It didn't scare him. Instead, it filled him with a deep sense of calm. He brought it back to his room and placed it beside the now dark pendant. They didn't glow anymore, but he knew they still held something important. He began to dream again. Each night, his dreams were filled with stars, with echoes of Nova's world. He no longer saw her face clearly, but her presence was there, watching, protecting. A soft hum always surrounded him like a gentle breeze. One morning, a letter arrived from High Command. Darren had been reassigned, not to combat, not to the front, but to a research station deep in the mountains. A place where they studied alien signals, lost technology, and unexplained energy fields. He didn't question it. He packed his few things, took the crystal and the pendant, and boarded the transport. The ride was silent. The air outside was cold. Snow covered everything as far as he could see. The base was quiet and buried under ice. Inside, he met with the lead researcher, a calm older woman named Dr. Elna. She didn't ask about Nova. She simply said, "We've read your file. We think you can help us understand something." Then she handed him a thin glass tablet. It displayed a pulse pattern, bright and complex. He recognized it instantly. It was the same energy he felt when Nova appeared. "Where did you find this?" he asked. Dr. Elna replied, "From a mountain cave. The signal started 2 weeks ago. We've never seen anything like it." Darren volunteered to join the survey team. They hiked through snow, wind, and ice. The mountain path was steep. No signs of life, no signs of war. Just white silence. But as they reached the edge of a narrow cliff, Darren's pulse quickened. The signal was strong. The crystal in his pocket pulsed again, just like before. The others couldn't see it, but he felt it clearly. Something was calling him. Something familiar. He stepped forward and found a small cave hidden behind thick snow. Inside, glowing lines traced the walls. Not paint, not metal energy. Pure and alive, they pulsed like a heartbeat. In the center of the cave stood a column of light, faint but steady. At the base of the light was a figure. It wasn't Nova, but it looked like her kind, frozen in time, eyes closed, hands clasped over the chest, peaceful, serene. The others couldn't enter. A force held them back. But Darren stepped through without resistance. He approached the figure. She didn't move. But as he touched the column, warmth flooded his body. A voice entered his mind, not Nova's but like hers. Soft, kind. "You are the bridge," it said. "You opened the way for her return. And now others will follow." Darren opened his eyes. The figure remained still. But a part of him understood. He wasn't just a witness anymore. He had become part of something larger. A guardian of memory. A keeper of connection. Between species. Between worlds. He returned to the base and told Dr. Elna everything. She didn't dismiss him. She listened carefully, asked no foolish questions, and simply said, "Then we need to protect this place." Darren agreed. The cave was sealed. The energy carefully studied, never touched. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a trap. It was a message. A resting place. And a reminder. Nova had not been the end. She had been the beginning. Asterisk. The mountain base became Darren's new home. He worked quietly, side by side with Dr. Elna and her team. They didn't ask many questions. They didn't try to control the cave. They respected it. More signals began to appear over time. Gentle pulses across the ice. Colors and shapes dancing in the walls. Some matched Nova's energy. Others were different, older, deeper. As if voices long gone had finally found a way to speak again. One evening, while reviewing the signal data, the crystal on Darren's desk began to glow again. It had been silent for weeks. He picked it up carefully and felt the warmth spread through his palm. The same calm he had felt the first time returned. He closed his eyes and let the feeling guide him. This time there was no vision of war, no crash, no pain. Instead, he saw Nova standing in a vast open space, full of stars and light. She wasn't hurt anymore. She looked whole. She reached out, not to speak, but to share. In that moment, Darren understood what the crystal truly was. A key, a memory. A link that could carry her message beyond death, beyond space, beyond time. He felt her gratitude. Not in words, but in something stronger. Trust, respect. A bond that had crossed two worlds and survived everything. Then she stepped back into the light and vanished. This time she didn't look back. Darren opened his eyes and wiped a tear from his cheek. He placed the crystal back in its resting place. It no longer glowed, but he knew it had done its part. Nova had reached him one last time, and she had said goodbye. Months passed. Snowstorms came and went. The world continued its path forward. Earth made contact with other alien races, but none like Nova's. No one could explain where her people went. They left no trace but the light buried deep in the mountain. People across the galaxy called the cave the echo chamber. Pilgrims came in silence. Scientists came with care. No machines worked inside, only hearts, only memory. Only those with calm minds could hear the pulses that lived in the stone. Darren never left. He took care of the cave, guided the teams, and taught the young ones about respect. He never claimed to be special. He never told the full story. But those who met him could feel that something in him had changed forever. At night, he would sit near the cave's entrance, looking up at the stars. He didn't wait for Nova anymore. He knew she wasn't coming back, not in form, not in voice. But in the silence, in the stillness, he could still feel her. One night a young cadet asked him, "Do you really believe she was ever real?" Darren smiled, eyes still on the stars. "She was more real than most people I've known," he said. The cadet nodded and sat beside him. They watched the sky together in silence. A faint breeze moved through the snow. Somewhere deep below, the light inside the cave pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Darren closed his eyes and listened to the wind. It no longer felt cold. It felt familiar. Like a whisper from another world. Like the memory of a promise kept. Like the last breath of a soul that had finally found peace. And when he opened his eyes again, he knew the world had changed. Not because of weapons, not because of war, but because one human had chosen to care when no one else did. And that choice had been seen by the stars.